Hi guys, just a quick little presentation on dialogue that kind of accompanies what's in your textbook. A couple of these first slides just talk about the importance of dialogue and how important it is to use in your paper. So go ahead and read these couple of quick quotes. So both of these authors really are talking about the fact that speech and dialogue makes your characters come alive. And part of the thing with a narrative essay is, yes, it's based on an event, but it's also based on the characters in that event. And so adding dialogue will bring your piece to life. Here's a couple of quick things, and these are taken right from your textbook. Number one, every time you have a new speaker, you have a new paragraph and a new set of quotes. So just to kind of highlight this, you see here, this is this starts person one here, person two, person one, person two, person one, person two. Notice that each new line of dialogue begins a new paragraph. And so that's what you'll want to do with every new speaker, especially if you're having a back and forth type of conversation. The reason why this one is attached to this paragraph up here is because this dialogue probably goes with the paragraph that precedes it. And so it's okay to have this dialogue within this paragraph because this person is saying that. But when a new speaker changes, then you need to change. So again, it's every other one. So this is okay, this is a new speaker, another new speaker, so on and so forth. All right, in order to do dialogue, there's just a couple of really quick and easy rules, hopefully. Number one, every time you start someone saying something, it starts with a capital letter. So you capitalize the G in get. Notice back here, though, the commanded is not capitalized because it's not within your quotation marks. Here we're talking about dad commanded, so it's a reverse of this sentence up here. Again, whatever in quotation marks is capitalized. So one of the quick and easy rules is if you're putting it in quotes, the first word will always get capitalized. Now notice in the second example, it's not in quotation marks. Dad commanded that we get into the car. He's not actually saying get into the car like he is in the first instance. It's called an indirect quote. And so dad really isn't saying get in the car. It's just that with the word that in there is what it distinguishes it from needing quotation marks and not needing quotation marks. All right. Rule number 3 says use new sets of quotation marks when a direct quotation is interrupted by tags, which are those explanatory words such as he remarked or she explained. And you want to try to vary the tag words if you even need them, rather than repeating he said or she said all the time. So there's a couple of things in this rule. Number 1, notice here we have quotation marks. First word is always capitalized, if you notice that. In the middle of this, we have what's called a dialogue tag. So what they're saying, or how they're saying it, and then who said it. So this is called the dialogue tag. This advises Somerset Maugham. And so it interrupts this. It's in the middle of this sentence. And so you notice the quotation marks start here again, but one major difference, the S is not capitalized. The reason for that not being capitalized is because this is a continuation of the sentence. This interrupts that one sentence. So good prose should resemble the conversation of a well-bred man. That's one sentence. This just happens to interrupt it. So because it's one sentence interrupted with a tag, this S is not capitalized. Now here's the note. If the second part of an interrupted quote begins a new sentence, so this is like if you have maybe a paragraph of dialogue and you have an interrupter. So down here in our example, the quote says, I will never know when I start a draft where I will go and how I will get there, writes Donald Murray. Okay, so I start my quotation mark with a capital letter. I end my quote. So this is all what Donald Murray is saying. And you notice that here's my tag. Here's a quotation mark, which always precedes the tag. And you'll notice that that happens up here as well. So a comma always precedes the tag. This is the end of the sentence, so we put a period there. But it's totally okay because Donald Murray's going to keep talking, and so this starts a new sentence, so the I is capitalized. Quotation marks go at the end of what Donald Murray said. When we talked about dialogue tags before, you'll notice that these are all the different varieties of ways to say said. And we talked about description last essay, and we're continuing to talk about it this essay. But if you notice, these are much more descriptive words than just to use the word said. And so the more often and the different types of tags you use, the better the description will be in your paper. So this is an option. You don't have to use a tag if we know who is doing the talking. And so this is kind of a tag. Tom turned to Martha. Again, we have a capital letter and a quotation mark. We put quotation marks at the end of what was said. Notice that the end punctuation always goes inside the quotation marks. And then we have a tag here, I guess, with she. So we put quotation marks around what was said. This is a comma because it precedes the tag. And then we have no tags here, which is totally okay. We just have quotation marks. Punctuation goes inside the quotation marks. Question mark goes inside the quotation marks. And then here we have, again, capital I because it starts the quote. We have the comma, which precedes the tag. Quotation marks at the end. And then this period signals that the whole sentence is complete. So if you have the tag at the end of the sentence, this is a good example of how you would do that. And then we have just another descriptor, not that this is a tag, but it's a descriptor, so it tells us what Martha is doing. And we have quotation marks around what she said. So you don't always need to have a tag. If you had he said, she said, going back and forth, it may get a little confusing. So sometimes it's okay to have no tag. This is one that I'm not really even going to talk about a whole lot. You don't run into this much, but if you're quoting a quote, it talks about using a single quote or a single quotation mark. And you'll notice that that happens right here. So here's the first initial quote said by Professor Bumpkin. And then he's quoting Polonius, which is a character in Shakespeare. And so then this becomes a single quote. Again, not something you're probably going to use very often. Here are some more rules about quotation marks. A comma or a period goes inside the closing quotation marks. So if you're using a period or if you're using a comma, they go within the quotation mark. And just to kind of go over this again, what's being said goes in quotation marks, followed by a comma. Here's my tag, followed by a comma because it comes in the middle of a sentence. Put quotes around what's said, and then a period at the end, inside quotation marks. Think about for a second, why is this S not capitalized? And again, the reasoning for that is because this tag interrupts one full sentence. And so it's not two sentences, it's one sentence interrupted by a tag, and so we can continue without capitalizing the S. All right, if you have a colon or a semicolon, those go outside of the quotation marks. And again, I'm not even going to spend much time on that because that doesn't happen very often. Question marks will go inside the closing quotation marks most of the time. And here's the difference. If you notice, are the peer response groups finished yet? That's a question. And so what happens is the question mark goes inside the quote because it belongs to that quotation mark. Here's your tag. Notice there's no capital I here because it's the same as if it were a period. So we don't capitalize the I because it's the tag. And then we have a period at the end. Now, if this were just a declarative sentence and no question, we would have a comma here. But because it's a question, we have the question mark, small I on inquired. The difference is, here they've used quotation marks, but this isn't part of the question. What's in quotes is not part of the question. This is the question. So have you read Frost's poem? Question mark goes outside because it doesn't, the question is not found within the quotes. All right, here's a scenario. I'm not going to have you do this either. But it's something for you to kind of think about. I am going to have you do the exercises in the book, 3A, but this is kind of a fun little exercise if you wanted to do something for fun for creative writing. It's a short passage of dialogue between the teen and the parent. Teen wants to take the Beamer and some friends to a rock concert in Chicago, and so the conversation that would transpire between the two. But again, you do not have to do this. This is just something for you to kind of think about. What is it that would be said? One of the important things to remember about dialogue is that it should fit the person who's saying it in terms of their education, in terms of their age, in terms of, realistically, what is it that someone this particular age would say? And so you want it really to fit the characters. And that is it.